At my daughter's lavish wedding, I overheard her whispering to her new husband about my future nursing home and claiming my Miami penthouse. He chuckled, adding I was getting more forgetful every day. I calmly put my glass down, a silent storm brewing inside. They had no idea what I was truly capable of. Like, share, and let us know where you're listening from. The grand ballroom glittered under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers, a symphony of expensive fabrics, delicate flowers, and the murmur of polite conversation. My daughter Sophia stood at the center of it all, a vision in white silk and lace, her radiant smile dazzling brighter than the diamonds at her throat. It was her wedding day, a culmination of months of meticulous planning and no small financial investment from my own pocket. A profound sense of pride swelled within me, mixed with an undeniable weariness that had settled deep into my bones. The day had been long, emotional, and frankly, exhausting. I sat at a tastefully decorated table near the back, nursing a glass of champagne that had barely been touched. My eyes, however, never strayed far from Sophia. She was laughing, her head thrown back, a picture of pure joy. Her new husband, Mark, a man whose charm I had always found a little too slick, leaned in close to her, his arm possessively around her waist. Sophia then whispered something, her voice carrying a little too loudly in the momentary lull of the background music. "When that old lady ends up in a nursing home," she began, a conspiratorial glint in her eye, "the penthouse in Miami is ours." The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. The festive sounds of the reception faded into a distant hum. My hand halfway to my lips with the champagne glass froze. My breath hitched in my throat. I couldn't have heard that correctly. My Sophia, my beautiful beloved daughter, couldn't possibly be talking about me. Not like that. Then Mark chuckled, a low, dismissive sound that grated on my ears. "Just a matter of time, babe," he said, his voice laced with an unpleasant knowingness. "Your mom's getting more forgetful every day." The world tilted. My heart, which had been so full of love and pride just moments before, shattered into a million icy fragments. It was unmistakably me they were talking about. That old lady, my own daughter, my only child. A cold, visceral ache spread through my chest. I felt a strange detachment, as if I were observing myself from a great distance. All the years, all the sacrifices, flashed before my eyes in a cruel, mocking montage. Arthur, my wonderful husband, had died so suddenly when Sophia was just 7 years old. One moment, we were a happy, complete family. The next, I was a widow, a single mother, staring into the abyss of an uncertain future. But I hadn't succumbed. I had fought. I remembered the crushing weight of grief, the endless nights spent weeping silently into my pillow so Sophia wouldn't hear. Then came the dawn, and with it, the steely resolve to provide. I took on double shifts at the accounting firm, sacrificing evenings and weekends, deferring my own dreams, my own aspirations, for a later date that never seemed to arrive. Every penny I earned went towards Sophia's education, her ballet lessons, her piano tutors, the designer clothes she insisted upon, the lavish birthday parties, the expensive summer camps. I wanted her to have everything I couldn't provide after Arthur's passing. I wanted her to feel secure, loved, and never wanting for anything. I poured every ounce of my being into raising her, ensuring she had a life of comfort and opportunity. Her every need, her every desire became my paramount concern. And the Miami penthouse? That was my one singular indulgence. 3 years ago, after finally paying off Sophia's college tuition and setting up a sizable trust fund for her, I had bought a modest, beautiful penthouse overlooking the ocean in South Beach. It was a place I envisioned retreating to in my golden years, a quiet sanctuary where I could read, paint, and watch the sunrise over the water. A place of peace, just for me. Sophia had reacted with a strange mix of feigned happiness and thinly veiled resentment. "It's a lovely place, Mother," she had said, "but isn't it a bit much, just for you?" Her words at the time had stung, but I had brushed them aside, attributing them to her youthful lack of understanding regarding personal space and the need for individual fulfillment. Now her true feelings were laid bare. It wasn't too much for me, It was an asset for her, waiting to be claimed. A strange, unsettling calm settled over me. It wasn't the peace of acceptance, but the quiet of a deep, unyielding resolve. I gently, almost imperceptibly, set my champagne glass down on the white linen tablecloth. My movements were slow, deliberate, belying the tempest raging within. I reached for my purse, a small, elegant clutch, and gripped it tight. Without a backward glance, without a single word to anyone at my table, I rose. The music swelled again, a romantic ballad that seemed cruelly ironic. The happy chatter of the guests enveloped Sophia and Mark, leaving me completely unnoticed as I navigated my way through the throng. No one saw me leave, or perhaps no one cared to look, except for Leo, the young valet who had greeted me hours earlier. He stood by the entrance, a flicker of concern in his eyes. "Mrs. Maxwell, is everything all right? You're leaving so soon?" he asked, his voice soft. I managed a weak smile, a mask I had perfected over decades. "Yes, Leo, just a little tired. Long day." My voice sounded distant, even to my own ears. He nodded, already fetching my car. As I pulled out of the lavish venue, the fairy tale wedding receding in my rearview mirror, the mask slipped. The composure I had maintained crumbled, leaving behind a raw, gaping wound. The truth, stark and unforgiving, hammered at me. I wasn't Sophia's mother. Not anymore. I was a burden, a fading relic whose only remaining value was the property I owned, an asset to be acquired, a stepping stone for her lavish future. The drive home was a blur of streetlights and unshed terrors. My beautiful home, usually a sanctuary, felt empty, haunted by the echoes of a love I now question. The key turned in the lock with a click that sounded deafening in the silence. Maria, my loyal housekeeper and friend of 20 years, emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. Her face, usually bright and bustling, softened with immediate concern. "Eleanor, my dear, you're home early. Is the wedding over already?" Her eyes, sharp and perceptive, instantly registered the tremor in my hands, the haunted look in my eyes. "What happened, darling? You look like you've seen a ghost." I tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. The dam I had held back for so long through Arthur's death, through countless disappointments, through Sophia's subtle cruelties, finally burst. I sank onto the nearest armchair, burying my face in my hands, and let the tears come. Years of suppressed hurt, of silent sacrifices, of quiet heartbreak, poured out of me in a torrent of sobs. Maria knelt beside me, her arms wrapping around my shaking shoulders. She didn't ask questions. She didn't offer platitudes. She simply held me, her silent comfort a balm to my ravaged soul, validating my pain without judgment, allowing me to weep freely, openly, for the first time in what felt like an eternity. The morning sun, usually a welcome visitor, felt harsh against my swollen eyelids. My head throbbed, a dull ache that echoed the one in my chest. I had cried until there were no more tears left, and Maria, my ever-present anchor, had stayed with me, listening patiently until the early hours. Her quiet strength had been a lifeline in the storm. As the first rays of light filtered through the curtains, a strange sense of clarity began to replace the raw pain. The world didn't feel quite so bleak, just different, sharper. Maria, already bustling in the kitchen, brought me a mug of herbal tea. "Sleep didn't come easy, eh, Miss Eleanor?" she asked, her voice gentle, her eyes full of understanding. "It is good to let it out sometimes. You have carried so much for so long." She sat opposite me at the breakfast nook, stirring her own coffee. "Sophia, she is your daughter, yes, but sometimes even family, they do not see all you do. You gave everything, Miss Eleanor, everything. From the moment Mr. Arthur passed, you put her first, always." Her words were not accusatory, just observational, a simple statement of undeniable truth. Her unwavering belief in my selfless devotion and her quiet acknowledgement of the profound lack of appreciation resonated deeply. As if on cue, my phone, which I had silenced the night before, began to buzz with a relentless urgency. Sophia, a string of texts first, then calls. Her messages were not inquiries about my well-being. No, they were expressions of irritation. Where did you go? It was so rude. Everyone was asking. Do you know how embarrassing that was for me? Not a single question about me, just about her and her perceived slight. It reinforced Maria's words, etching them deeper into my newfound clarity. I walked over to the large window overlooking the ocean. The gentle, rhythmic crash of waves, a stark contrast to the tumult inside me. Arthur and I had dreamed of this view, of retiring here together, watching the sunsets from our own little slice of paradise. His illness had cut that dream tragically short. Now I stood here alone, contemplating a daughter who spoke of putting me in a nursing home to claim my property. What would Arthur think? He had adored Sophia, indulged her, but he had also instilled in her a strong sense of family, of respect. Would he even recognize the girl she had become? The thought twisted my gut. Finally, the phone rang again, demanding attention. I took a deep breath, a slow, deliberate act that steadied my nerves. This time I answered, "Mother, where were you?" Sophia's voice, sharp and demanding, cut through the line, confirming my expectations. "Do you have any idea how embarrassing it was for me when you just vanished? People were asking. It looked terrible. Not, 'Are you okay, mother?' or 'Did something happen?' Just the immediate scolding, the focus entirely on her image, her inconvenience. I left because I was feeling unwell, Sophia," I stated calmly, my voice surprisingly steady. The day was a bit much. She dismissed my explanation with an impatient sigh. "Well, you could have at least sent a text. Anyway, that's beside the point. You absolutely must be here for the gift opening later today. We'll need your help organizing everything. Mark and I have so much to do." It wasn't an invitation. It was a directive, a demand. My role was clear: subservient assistant. A small, unfamiliar spark ignited within me, a quiet rebellion. For decades, Sophia's demands had been my commands. Not anymore. "I'm afraid I can't, dear," I said, the words surprising even myself as they flowed out. "I already have a prior engagement." "A prior engagement?" Sophia scoffed. "What could possibly be more important than your own daughter's gift opening after her wedding?" "Mother, this is ridiculous." "It's Maria's birthday," I improvised, the lie feeling strangely exhilarating. "We have plans for lunch. She's been with me for so long, and I owe her a proper celebration." Sophia's indignation was palpable even through the phone. "Maria, your housekeeper? Mother, please. You can celebrate her birthday anytime. This is important. You know how much work it is." The dismissal of Maria, my friend and confidant, as merely my housekeeper, stung deeply. It was a mirror of how Sophia viewed me, a functional entity, there to serve. "No, Sophia," I said, my voice firmer than I had anticipated. "My plans with Maria are set. You and Mark will manage perfectly fine." I felt a strange power bloom within me, a quiet, profound strength I hadn't realized I possessed. This tiny act of defiance, this small assertion of my own autonomy, felt monumental. I heard Sophia spluttering on the other end, but I didn't wait for her next protest. "I have to go now, dear. I'll call you later." And with that, I ended the call before she could even formulate a proper argument. Maria, who had been listening intently from the kitchen, walked over, a warm, knowing smile playing on her lips. "My birthday, Miss Eleanor? How thoughtful," she teased, her eyes twinkling. "It is now," I replied, a genuine smile finally breaking through my weariness. "And we're going to celebrate it properly. You deserve it, Maria, more than anyone." We drove to a small, unassuming Cuban restaurant I loved, a place Maria often cooked meals inspired by. Over steaming plates of picadillo and sweet plantains, a sense of lightness began to seep into me. The conversation flowed easily, away from the wedding drama and Sophia's self-centeredness. "You know, Maria," I started almost hesitantly, "before Arthur and Sophia, I had dreams of my own." I paused, remembering a girl I barely recognized. I was a talented artist. I had an art scholarship, a full ride to a prestigious university. I had rarely, if ever, spoken of this to Sophia. She knew I liked to paint, but she saw it as a quaint hobby, not a lost passion. But then Arthur came along, and I fell so deeply in love. He wanted a family, and I wanted to give him everything. I gave up the scholarship, married him, and then Sophia came. My focus shifted entirely. My art became a distant memory, replaced by motherhood. Maria listened, her dark eyes filled with a profound empathy. When I finished, she asked softly, "And now Isabella is married. She has her own life. What about your life, Miss Eleanor?" Her simple question, delivered without judgment, hung in the air, echoing profoundly. My life. The words felt foreign, almost alien. For decades, my life had been inextricably intertwined with Arthur's, then solely dedicated to Sophia's. I had defined myself by my roles as wife and mother. But Maria was right. Sophia was married, building her own life with Mark. She no longer needed me in the same way, and certainly didn't seem to want me, except as a resource. That evening, a sense of purposeful energy filled me. The tears had cleared the fog, and Maria's words had planted a seed. I sat at my desk, a legal pad before me, and began to list my assets. My home, my investments, my accounts in the Miami penthouse. Each item on the list represented a piece of the life I had built, not just for Sophia, but for myself. The realization dawned on me, stark and powerful. These were my assets, not Sophia's. I closed my eyes, a new resolve hardening in my heart. The game had changed. Tomorrow, I would contact Mr. Caldwell, my attorney. It was time to rewrite the script. The morning after my candid conversation with Maria, I felt a resolve solidify within me that had been absent for decades. My first call was to Mr. Caldwell, my attorney, a man who had handled my legal affairs for over 20 years, through Arthur's estate and countless other matters. His secretary, a familiar, kind voice, answered. "Good morning, Evelyn," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "It's Eleanor Maxwell. I need to speak with Mr. Caldwell urgently. I need to make some significant changes to my will." Evelyn, accustomed to my usually calm and measured requests, sensed the unusual gravity in my tone. "Of course, Mrs. Maxwell. I'll put you through." Mr. Caldwell's voice was warm, professional. "Eleanor, to what do I owe this early call?" "Henry," I began, using his first name, a familiarity I usually reserve for less formal discussions. "I need to change my will, and I need to do it as soon as possible. My perspective on a few things has shifted profoundly." There was no need to elaborate over the phone. The urgency in my voice conveyed enough. He sensed it. "Understood. Can you come in this afternoon?" "No, I'd prefer you come here if possible," I requested. "First thing tomorrow morning?" "Of course, Eleanor. I'll adjust my schedule. See you at 9. And with the meeting set, a wave of lightness washed over me. I walked into my old studio, a room that had largely become a storage space for forgotten hobbies and dusty memories. I unearthed my long-dormant art supplies, a wooden easel, a box of oil paints, brushes stiff with dried pigment, canvases still wrapped in plastic. A surge of anticipation, a forgotten joy, pulsed through me. This was my life waiting to be rekindled. The prospect of rediscovering this part of myself, a life beyond the roles of wife and mother, filled me with an exhilarating sense of possibility. My phone, meanwhile, continued its incessant buzzing. Sophia, still fuming, still demanding. I ignored her calls, letting them go to voicemail. For too long, her demands had dictated my day, my emotional landscape. Not anymore. My path was my own now, and it did not include being dictated to by a self-centered daughter. Mr. Caldwell arrived promptly at 9 the next morning. He was a distinguished man in his late 50s, with a kind, intelligent face and a meticulous air. As Maria ushered him in, he immediately noticed the change in me. My eyes, though still a little tired, held a sharpness, a glint of determination he hadn't seen before. "Eleanor," he greeted, taking my hand, "you seem invigorated despite the circumstances. How are you?" "I'm clear, Henry," I replied, leading him to the balcony overlooking the ocean, where the fresh air and vast expanse seemed to offer a sense of perspective. And that's a new feeling. I sat across from him and in a calm, almost detached voice, recounted Sophia and Mark's conversation at the wedding. The words, "When that old lady ends up in a nursing home, the penthouse in Miami is ours," and Mark's dismissive agreement, "Just a matter of time, babe. Your mom's getting more forgetful every day," flowed out, devoid of the raw emotion I had felt just 2 days prior. I had processed the pain. Now it was time for action. Mr. Caldwell listened intently, his expression shifting from professional attentiveness to genuine concern. Eleanor, I am so sorry you had to hear such a thing from your own daughter. That must be incredibly painful. It was, I agreed, meeting his gaze steadily. But it also opened my eyes. For years, Henry, I've been blind to who Sophia really is, or perhaps who she has become. I took a deep breath. My decision is firm. I want to remove Sophia as my primary beneficiary. He nodded, taking notes. Understood. And to whom would you like the bulk of your estate to go? To Maria, I stated without a moment's hesitation. Maria Rodriguez, my loyal friend and caregiver. She has shown me more genuine care, more respect, and more unconditional love than Sophia ever has, especially these past few years. She deserves security, a life free from worry. After all her years of devoted service and friendship, Mr. Caldwell paused, his pen hovering over the paper. Eleanor, I must advise you, this is a significant deviation from your previous will, which left everything to Sophia. If you make Maria your primary beneficiary, Sophia will almost certainly challenge it. She will claim undue influence, that Maria manipulated you, especially given their employer-employee relationship. I met his gaze, my resolve unwavering. Let her. I am of sound mind, Henry, more sound than I've been in years. I will state unequivocally that this decision is my own, freely made, and based on Sophia's own actions and words. I am ready to face any contest. He looked at me for a long moment, seeing the steel in my eyes. Have you considered speaking with Sophia first? Explaining your reasons? I have considered it, Henry, and I reject the idea, I said firmly. I've spent a lifetime giving Sophia chances, making excuses for her, hoping she would see. She has never seen. This isn't a conversation, it's a statement, and it's a necessary one. Just then my phone buzzed again. Sophia, another text. Mother, Mark, and I are coming over tomorrow evening. We need to discuss your behavior at the wedding. This cannot stand. I showed the text to Mr. Caldwell. It seems I'll have the opportunity to make my statement sooner than planned, I murmured. Tell them yes, Eleanor. I'll hear them out. It seems like a good time to observe their true colors without my usual veil of tolerance. After Mr. Caldwell had left, promising to draft the new will immediately for my review and signature, I found Maria in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared lunch. Maria, I called softly, drawing her into the living room. I have something important to tell you. She looked at me, her brow furrowed with curiosity. I've decided to change my will, I began, choosing my words carefully. I'm leaving the majority of my estate to you, my dear friend. Maria's eyes widened, her hands flying to her mouth in a gesture of profound shock. Her face, usually so composed, crumpled with distress. Miss Eleanor. No, I cannot accept this. What about Miss Sophia? This is too much. I took her hands, holding them gently. Sophia will be fine, Maria. She has Mark, and she has her own considerable inheritance from Arthur's trust. This is for you, for your loyalty, your kindness, your genuine care, and your respect. You deserve this security, Maria, more than anyone I know. The doorbell chimed precisely at 7 p.m., prompt as always when something concerned them. Maria, ever discreet, had already retreated to her quarters, leaving me to face them alone. I opened the door to Sophia and Mark, both dressed impeccably, their expressions a carefully calibrated mix of annoyance and feigned concern. Sophia stepped into the penthouse, her eyes immediately sweeping across the expansive living area. Not with appreciation, but with an appraising, almost possessive gaze. Mark, without an invitation, walked directly to my liquor cabinet, poured himself a generous scotch, and settled onto the sofa as if he owned the place. Mother, this is entirely unacceptable, Sophia began, not bothering with pleasantries. Her voice was sharp, accusatory. You embarrassed me by leaving early from my wedding. Everyone was talking. I remained standing, meeting her gaze calmly. I wasn't feeling well, Sophia. She dismissed my explanation with a wave of her hand, and then to skip the gift opening for your housekeeper's birthday. Honestly, Mother, it's just so disrespectful to Mark and me. It's my wedding week. Mark interjected, his tone falsely solicitous. Yes, Eleanor. Sophia's been really worried about you. You're becoming increasingly unreliable. Living alone in this big place is just not ideal for someone your age." He took a long sip of his scotch, his eyes glinting. "Does she now?" I asked, my voice flat, seeing right through their transparent performance. The worry was a thinly veiled pretext. Sophia quickly adopted a facade of concern, her features softening into a look that was almost convincing. "Mother, we really think it's time you started looking into some nice retirement communities. For your future, somewhere with more support, medical staff on site, activities. Mark and I have been discussing it, and we just want what's best for you." "I have an elevator, Sophia," I stated, my voice even, refusing to rise to their bait. "Maria is here most days, and I have several good friends in the building. I'm perfectly fine." Mark leaned forward, placing his glass on the coffee table with a soft thud. "But your needs will change, Eleanor. As you get older, you'll require more assistance. It's just a matter of foresight." I looked from Mark to Sophia, a deep sense of betrayal warring with an unexpected surge of defiance. The time for pretense was over. "Yes," I said, my voice cutting through their manufactured concern like a knife. "Like the one you were discussing at your wedding, wasn't it? When you said, and I quote, 'When that old lady goes into a nursing home, the Miami penthouse is ours.'" The effect was instantaneous and absolute. Sophia's carefully constructed mask shattered. Her face drained of all color, her jaw dropping. Mark's eyes widened, his hand freezing on his scotch glass. The silence that followed was deafening, thick with their shock. You heard that?" Sophia stammered, her voice barely a whisper, a flicker of raw panic in her eyes. Then just as quickly, her shock morphed into defensive anger. "Mother, that's ridiculous. We were just joking. You misunderstood. It was the champagne, the excitement of the wedding. You know how it is?" "A joke?" I asked, my voice still calm, though an icy fury was beginning to brew within me. "Do you often joke about your mother's impending demise and the acquisition of her property?" "What part of that was meant to be humorous, Sophia? The malicious intent, perhaps?" Mark tried to intercede, attempting to placate me. "Eleanor, please, Sophia's right. It was just a silly comment, completely out of context. We were celebrating. Things get said." I turned my gaze directly to him. "And which part didn't you mean, Mark? The part about me being an old lady, or the part about taking my home once I'm warehoused somewhere?" I had almost said David. I mentally corrected it to Mark. Sophia, stung by my directness, lashed out. "Honestly, Mother, you're being so dramatic. It's just a phrase." "Is it?" I countered, raising an eyebrow. "Tell me, Sophia, when was the last time you called me just to check on me? Not for money, not to complain about something, not to ask me to do something for you, just to ask how I was?" Sophia's mouth opened, then closed. She was speechless, utterly unable to answer. The silence confirmed everything. My suspicions, my pain, my long-held fears, all validated in her stunned silence. "After your father died, Sophia," I continued, my voice softening slightly, laden with the weight of memory, "I worked double shifts. I deferred my dreams. I gave up my art scholarship. I put every single penny into giving you the best life possible. I sacrificed so much so you would never feel the sting of want or neglect. All I ever asked for was your love and your respect." "You always bring that up," Sophia exclaimed, throwing her hands up in exasperation. "You always keep score. It's ancient history." "No, Sophia," I corrected, my voice firm again. "It's not about keeping score. It's about a fundamental understanding of what love and family mean. And I only ever asked for love and respect, neither of which you have bothered to give me in decades." Mark, ever the smooth operator, tried to diffuse the escalating tension. "Eleanor, we do care about your future. That's all this is about." "No, Mark," I corrected, my gaze unwavering. "You care about my assets. Let's not pretend otherwise." Sophia, completely losing her composure, her face contorted with rage, finally let her true colors show. "Fine. If you're going to be so paranoid and impossible, maybe we will look into those retirement homes sooner rather than later. See how you like that." A ghost of a smile touched my lips. I remembered Mr. Caldwell's assurances, the newly drafted will awaiting my signature. "I'm not going anywhere, Sophia," I stated, my voice calm but laced with an unshakable authority. "And neither is this penthouse." Sophia, fuming, stormed toward the door. Mark, looking uncomfortable, followed her. As she reached the threshold, she turned back, her eyes flashing with a bitter resentment. "This is how you treat me? On my wedding week?" "And what have you done for me, Sophia?" I asked quietly, highlighting the profound difference in our perspectives of our relationship. She stared, wordless and furious, then spun on her heel and stormed out, Mark trailing behind her like a scolded puppy. The heavy door clicked shut, plunging the penthouse into a sudden, profound quiet. Maria emerged from her quarters, her face a mixture of concern and approval. I looked out at the ocean, the setting sun painting the sky in fiery hues. Despite the brutal honesty of the confrontation, a surprising sense of peace settled over me. The truth had been spoken. The charade was over. The morning after the intense confrontation, the penthouse felt oddly peaceful. The air was lighter, the silence no longer heavy with unspoken resentment. My first action was to call Mr. Caldwell. "Henry," I said, my voice unwavering, "I've thought everything through, and I am absolutely certain about the changes to my will. Please proceed as we discussed." His confirmation brought a profound sense of rightness. I spent the morning in my studio, the easel now set up, brushes cleaned, and a fresh canvas awaiting. I chose to paint a stormy seascape, turbulent waves crashing against jagged rocks, yet with a sliver of brilliant sun breaking through the dark clouds on the horizon. Each stroke of the brush felt like a release, a small act of healing. The vibrant blues and grays of the churning sea, contrasted with the golden light, mirrored the tempest in my heart and the nascent hope that had begun to bloom. It was a deeply satisfying, almost therapeutic endeavor. Just as I was mixing a particularly rich shade of ochre, the doorbell chimed. I glanced at the clock. It was a little early for Mr. Caldwell, but perhaps he was ahead of schedule. I wiped my hands on a rag and walked to the door, a faint smile on my lips, ready to sign the documents and cement my new path. But it wasn't Mr. Caldwell. Sophia stood on my doorstep alone. Her usual polished facade was slightly crumpled, her eyes a little red, her posture subdued. She looked vulnerable almost. A flicker of the old maternal hope ignited within me, a tiny ember suggesting that perhaps, just perhaps, my words had finally broken through. "Mother," she began, her voice softer than it had been in days. "Can I come in? I've been thinking about what you said. A lot. I want to make things right." I hesitated, a lifetime of Sophia's false starts and fleeting apologies flashing through my mind. But the sight of her looking so uncharacteristically subdued made me open the door wider. "Come in, Sophia," I said, my tone cautious, but not unwelcoming. She stepped inside, not heading for the sofa, but standing rather awkwardly in the middle of the living room. "I know I haven't been the best daughter lately," she continued, her gaze fixed on the floor. "And I know you've done so much for me. I really do appreciate it. I've been so caught up with the wedding and everything." She looked up, her eyes seeking mine. "I want to spend more time with you, Mother. Really, we could do lunch, go shopping. I could help you organize things here, even go through Dad's old belongings. There must be so many memories." The mention of Arthur's old belongings after 20 years of complete disinterest sent a subtle alarm bell ringing in my mind. Her sudden eagerness to organize things here also struck a discordant note. The flicker of hope dimmed, replaced by a growing wariness. This wasn't genuine remorse. This felt like a new strategy. Just then the doorbell chimed again. This time I knew it was Mr. Caldwell. I walked to the door and opened it. He stepped inside, a slim leather briefcase in hand, and his gaze immediately fell upon Sophia. He raised an eyebrow subtly, a silent acknowledgement of the unexpected guest. "Good morning, Eleanor," he said, his voice professional, but with an underlying hint of caution. "I've brought the documents we discussed." The words "documents we discussed" immediately caught Sophia's attention. Her mask of concern slipped entirely. Her head snapped up, her eyes wide with sudden suspicion. "Documents? What documents?" she demanded. her voice losing its subdued quality and taking on an edge. Before I could answer, Mr. Caldwell, ever efficient, had opened his briefcase and laid out a neatly stapled folder on the coffee table. The words "Last Will and Testament" were clearly visible on the cover. Sophia gasped. With a swift, almost predatory movement, she snatched the folder from the table. Her eyes darted across the pages, her face paling with each line she read, then flushing with an indignant rage that transformed her features. "What is this?" she shrieked, her voice echoing through the penthouse. "You are leaving everything to Maria? Your housekeeper? Are you insane, Mother? You can't do this." I calmly reached out and took the folder back, placing it securely on the table. "Sophia, this is my will. I have every right to distribute my estate as I see fit." "Maria has manipulated you!" she screamed, her face contorted with fury, tears starting to stream down her face. "She's been poisoning your mind, trying to steal from you for years. This is undue influence." Mr. Caldwell stepped forward, his voice firm and authoritative. "Miss Sophia, I assure you, Mrs. Maxwell is of sound mind. I have reviewed these documents with her thoroughly. I must also caution you against making unsubstantiated accusations of manipulation. That is a serious legal claim." Sophia, ignoring him, turned her tear-filled rage directly on me. "You would choose her over your own daughter? Your only child? After everything I am, everything you've given me?" The accusation, though steeped in hypocrisy, still pricked at a vulnerable part of my heart. A wave of sadness washed over me, a lament for the daughter I thought I had, the relationship I had so desperately tried to nurture. But the clarity remained. "No, Sophia," I said, my voice soft but unyielding. "I'm choosing myself." I paused, letting the words sink in. I need to be surrounded by genuine care, by people who offer respect and affection, not those who only value me for what I possess or what they can take from me. You have made it abundantly clear where your priorities lie." Sophia stared at me, her face a mask of disbelief and incandescent fury, her features contorted, her jaw clenched. "You'll regret this, Mom," she hissed, her voice low and venomous, a chilling promise. "I promise you that." And with that, she turned, stormed out of the penthouse, and slammed the door shut, leaving silence in her wake. The only sound was the gentle rustle of the legal documents on the table. Mr. Caldwell looked at me, a silent question in his eyes. "It seems," I said, picking up a brush and returning to my painting, "the storm isn't quite over yet, but the sun is still breaking through." A full month passed since Sophia's furious exit from my penthouse. The silence was absolute, unbroken by a single call or text from her. In that time, life had begun to bloom in unexpected ways. I had signed the new will, the ink a testament to my unwavering resolve, witnessed by Mr. Caldwell and a medical doctor he had arranged to certify my mental competence. It was a preemptive strike against exactly what Sophia had threatened, a necessary safeguard. Maria, still somewhat uncomfortable with the magnitude of the inheritance, had finally accepted my decision, seeing the steadfast determination in my eyes. My days, once so focused on Sophia's needs and unspoken expectations, now stretched before me, rich with possibility. I spent hours in my studio, painting with a fervor I hadn't known since my youth. The stormy seascape with the breaking sun was finished, a powerful symbol of my journey, now hanging prominently in my living room. I reconnected with neighbors I had only exchanged pleasantries with, joined a local book club, and even started volunteering at an animal shelter. I was slowly, deliberately building a new life, one defined by my own desires and interests, not by obligation. Then the quiet peace was shattered. One Tuesday afternoon, the postman delivered a certified letter. The return address was an unfamiliar law firm, its crisp, formal font hinting at something serious. My hands, usually steady, trembled slightly as I slid open the envelope. The contents chilled me to the bone. It was a formal notification. Sophia was contesting my mental competence and seeking temporary guardianship. The letter was filled with outrageous, defamatory claims, early dementia, impaired judgment, manipulation by staff, Maria specifically, and a sudden pattern of irrational financial decisions. My blood ran cold as I read the distorted reality they had fabricated. They sought to declare me incapable of managing my own affairs, all to gain control of my estate. I immediately called Mr. Caldwell, my voice shaking with a mixture of anger and disbelief. "Henry, it's Eleanor. Sophia has done it. She's contesting my competence." I read him excerpts from the letter, my indignation rising with each preposterous claim. He listened patiently, his voice calm and reassuring when I finished. "Eleanor, this is a desperate move, exactly as we anticipated. It's a legal tactic, but it's one that will backfire spectacularly. We have the doctor's certification, your clear testimony, and her own behavior to use against her. Don't worry, we'll handle this." Despite his assurances, that night was restless. Sleep evaded me. I replayed Sophia's words, her accusations, her false concern. Had there ever been a moment of genuine remorse, a flicker of true love beneath her calculating exterior? Or had it always been about the inheritance, the penthouse, the assets she felt entitled to? The question gnawed at me, leaving a bitter taste. The next morning, the doorbell rang just as I was finishing my breakfast. I expected Maria to arrive for her shift, but when I opened the door, an unexpected visitor stood on my doorstep. Mark. He looked uncomfortable, agitated. His expensive suit seemed rumpled, his usual slick charm replaced by a nervous energy. "Eleanor," he began, his eyes darting around the hallway. "Sophia doesn't know I'm here. She'd be furious if she found out." I eyed him skeptically, my guard immediately up. "Then why are you here, Mark?" He wrung his hands. "Because this has gone too far. The lawsuit, the claims about your mental state, it's wrong." My suspicion deepened. A sudden pang of conscience, Mark? Or has something else changed? I had no illusions about his character. He was an opportunist, and a selfish one at that. He flushed. "Look, I'm not going to pretend to be a good person. I married Sophia partly because I thought she came with a certain financial security. And I knew you were wealthy, Eleanor. But this lawsuit accusing you of being senile and manipulated, it crosses a line for me." He paused, then took a deep breath. "There's something else. Sophia told me about your family wealth. She said you owned valuable land in Colorado, old family money from your side, that it was practically a gold mine, just waiting to be sold once you were settled." My brow furrowed in bewilderment. "Valuable land in Colorado, old family money?" I shook my head slowly. "Mark, I own no such land. My family was and remains relatively modest. My parents were school teachers. Everything I have, this penthouse included, was hard-earned after Arthur's death. There's no hidden fortune, no old family money, or gold mine land in Colorado." Mark stared at me, his eyes widening with a dawning realization. The agitation on his face transformed into a raw blend of shock and anger. He looked utterly shaken. She lied to me. About that? About your background? About everything?" "It seems so," I confirmed, a profound sadness in my voice. "My husband Arthur and I built what we had through hard work. After he died, I redoubled my efforts. Every penny, every investment was carefully managed, not inherited from some grand family estate." He ran a hand through his hair, a look of deep embarrassment and betrayal clouding his features. "I can't believe this. She built this whole narrative. I thought I was marrying into old money, that you were just being difficult about giving it up. This changes everything." He took another deep breath, his gaze meeting mine, a newfound, if reluctant, respect in his eyes. "I'm going to call my lawyer, Eleanor, and I'm going to call Sophia's lawyer. I'm withdrawing my support for this guardianship. I can't be a part of it." He paused, then added, "I need to go figure out my marriage." He turned and walked out, leaving me alone once more. I watched him go, then sank onto my balcony chair. The morning sun warmed my face. A quiet victory, perhaps, not one I relished, but one that cleared the path forward. Sophia's carefully constructed world, built on lies and greed, was beginning to crumble, not just around me, but around her. 2 weeks after Mark's startling visit, the phone rang. It was Mr. Caldwell. His voice, usually so measured, held a note of genuine satisfaction. Eleanor, he announced, I have good news. The judge dismissed Sophia's petition fully. A wave of immense relief washed over me, so potent it left me weak in the knees. Dismissed? I repeated, almost breathlessly. Yes, and not just dismissed. The judge issued a rather stern rebuke to Sophia's attorneys for bringing such a baseless case, citing the doctor's certification and the frivolous nature of the claims. He paused, a chuckle in his voice. He even made a passing comment about the timing, given the wedding was so recent. It seems your clear-headedness impressed him, and Sophia's eagerness to claim guardianship less so. My autonomy was protected, at least for now. I knew Sophia could still contest the will after my death, but with the current legal precedent and my documented mental competence, her chances were significantly diminished. The battle for my present self was won. Later that afternoon, I asked Maria to join me for tea on the balcony, wanting to share the good news. She listened, her face reflecting my relief. Thank goodness, Miss Eleanor. That would have been terrible. After a moment, she hesitantly cleared her throat. Perhaps now, with all this unpleasantness, it would be best if I looked for another position. Miss Sophia, she will be very angry. I don't want to cause more trouble for you. I looked at her, my friend, my loyal companion, the recipient of my legacy. Maria, I said firmly, reaching across the table to take her hand, Sophia's issues, her anger, her greed, will not drive away the one person who has shown me true loyalty and genuine care. You are not a cause of trouble. You are a source of strength, and no, you are not going anywhere. She still looked uncomfortable, her gaze falling to the tea swirling in her cup. But the money, Miss Eleanor, it is too much. It is what you deserve, Maria, I insisted gently. It's not just money. It's security, recognition for a lifetime of devotion, and a promise that you will never have to worry again. You earned it, fair and square. A week later, my phone rang again. It was an unfamiliar number, but a faint intuition made me pick up. Hello? Mother, it's Sophia. Her voice was subdued, fragile, utterly devoid of its usual demanding edge, a stark contrast to the last time we spoke. Can we meet in person? I have something to tell you. I almost said no. The thought of another confrontation, another round of accusations, exhausted me. But a deeper compulsion, a mother's ingrained instinct, urged me to agree. All right, Sophia, I said, my voice neutral. The same cafe, tomorrow at noon. She was already there when I arrived, seated at a corner table, nursing a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. Sophia looked thinner, her vibrant energy diminished. Dark circles smudged beneath her eyes, and her usually impeccable hair seemed slightly disheveled. The expensive clothes she wore hung a little loosely. It was a stark visual contrast to the radiant bride I had seen just a few weeks prior. I sat opposite her. The familiar clatter of the cafe filled the silence between us. I waited. Without preamble, without even a greeting, she looked up, her eyes dull. Mark's filing for divorce. The words, though not entirely unexpected after Mark's visit, still landed with a quiet weight. Despite everything, despite the pain she had inflicted, a pang of genuine sorrow went through me. Sophia, I said softly, I never wanted to see you in pain. No mother wants that for her child. She let out a bitter, humorless laugh. Oh, I'm sure you're thrilled. My life falling apart, just as you planned, right? No, Sophia, I countered gently, shaking my head. That's not fair. You're my child. Your happiness, your well-being, has always mattered to me, deeply, despite the hurt you've caused. She looked away, her gaze fixed on a distant point. I lied to him, Mother, about everything, about us, about our family, about some imagined inheritance. I lied to so many people for so long that sometimes I barely remembered the truth myself. Why, Sophia? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Why the lies? She shrugged, a gesture of profound weariness. I don't know. To be more than I was, I guess. To have the life I thought I deserved, the kind of life everyone else seemed to have. I always felt like I had to prove something. She looked back at me, her eye brimming with unshed tears. And now I don't know what I deserve. I know I haven't earned your forgiveness. Not after everything. She took a shaky breath, then added, almost inaudibly, I'm not contesting your will anymore. You're right, I haven't earned your legacy. The admission, raw and unprompted, struck me profoundly. It was the first glimmer of genuine introspection I had seen from her in years. Sophia, I said, my voice filled with a complex mix of sadness and hope. My door is open, not for an inheritance, not for obligation, but for a relationship, if you are willing to build one based on mutual respect and honesty. Tears finally spilled from her eyes, tracing paths down her pale cheeks. I don't know if I can be what you need me to be, Mother, she choked out. I only need one thing, Sophia, I replied, my gaze steady. Honesty, with yourself and with me. Slowly, hesitantly, she reached across the table. I met her halfway, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, we shared a tentative hug. It was clumsy, fragile, but it was real. As we pulled apart, our eyes met, a kaleidoscope of emotions swirling between us. It was not a clear resolution, but perhaps, just perhaps, it was a beginning, or an ending of one chapter, and the uncertain, hopeful start of another. 6 months had passed since that fraught conversation in the cafe. The Miami sun, a familiar comfort, cast long golden shadows across my balcony as Maria and I sat, sipping iced tea and watching another spectacular sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and purple. The rhythmic crash of the waves below was a constant, soothing soundtrack to my new life. I had just returned from a local art exhibition, a thrill of accomplishment still buzzing within me. One of my seascapes, a vibrant depiction of a sun-drenched beach with a single lone sailboat on the horizon, had sold. The validation was immense, not for the money, but for the recognition of a passion I had suppressed for so long. Maria smiled, her eyes twinkling. Miss Eleanor, Sophia called earlier. She asked if she could come for dinner next Sunday. My heart gave a small, familiar flutter, a mix of apprehension and quiet anticipation. Our relationship with Sophia was slowly, tentatively rebuilding. It was a fragile, delicate dance, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but it was progress. Sophia had embraced significant changes in her life since the divorce. She had moved out of the extravagant home she shared with Mark, settling into a modest but charming apartment of her own. She had taken a new job, one that was less prestigious than her previous role, but by her own admission, more meaningful and less driven by superficial metrics. And most significantly, she had started therapy. She was facing her demons, her insecurities, her compulsive need to project an image of effortless wealth and success. There were still moments, of course, when the old Sophia would surface, a hint of entitlement, a flash of impatience. But now I recognized them for what they were. Vestiges of a past persona, not defining characteristics. And crucially, there was no ulterior motive behind her calls or visits. She wasn't seeking money, or control, or validation for a fabricated life. She was simply seeking connection, however faltering. I smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile. That would be nice, Maria, I said, my gaze sweeping across the vast expanse of the ocean. Please tell her yes. As the last rays of sunlight glittered on the water, painting a shimmering path to the horizon, I reflected on the true meaning of legacy. For so long, I had equated it with providing for Sophia, with leaving her a tangible inheritance, a comfortable life. But now I realized it was so much more profound. It wasn't about money or property, not solely. It was about the values imparted, the examples set, the resilience shown, and most importantly, the love given freely, without expectation or condition. Sophia might never fully become the daughter I once hoped for, the one who effortlessly understood the depth of my sacrifices and returned them with unwavering respect. And I, perhaps, might never be the mother Sophia wanted, the one who indulged her every whim without question or consequence. But we were finding an honest path forward, one built on the fragile foundation of truth, not a glittering facade of lies. The Miami penthouse, this beautiful sanctuary I had created for myself, would one day go to Maria. She, more than anyone, had truly earned my trust and affection. Her loyalty, her genuine care, and her steadfast friendship were treasures far beyond any material wealth. She deserved this security, this comfort, as a testament to a bond that had proven to be unbreakable. My own true legacy, I hoped, would be found in the courage to stand up for myself, to assert my autonomy after a lifetime of deferring to others. It would be in the wisdom to recognize genuine love and respect and to distinguish it from the hollow demands of entitlement. It would be in the strength to begin again, to reclaim a dormant passion, and to forge a new path for myself, even in my later years. Looking out at the endless horizon where the sky met the sea in a seamless blend of blues and purples, I felt a deep, profound sense of peace. The storm had passed, leaving behind a clear, vibrant sky. For the first time in my life, I was truly defined by myself, Eleanor Vance. Not as Arthur's widow, not as Sophia's mother, but as a woman who finally found the courage to live life on her own terms, embracing the beauty of an honest, authentic existence.